As a forewarning, this spoils the rest of Dragon Ball Super's Tournament of Power arc, including, of course, the spoiler for episode 131. Listen to this at your own discretion. About a couple of weeks ago, Dragon Ball Super episode 118 had its strawberry drop, and you know what that means. Getting to watch the last stand of Universes 2 and 6 and their subsequent erasure. We're already well past the point where our friend has proven that the erasures are very controlled, even catching mementos. I'm only sparing the angels from this reminder that the Dragon Ball Multiverse's Afterworld is physical, when sparing the likes of Universe 10's Angel Goose has at least is proven its own, however subtle, tragedy. Universes 2 and 6, thanks to an air of familiarity with both, albeit more nuanced with Universe 2, has this aspect hit home, especially when they opt to face death with dignity the way they both do. Now, before I start, keep in mind that I have seen episode 131, so I know how Android 17 does the universe restoration wish after becoming MVP by default of being the only fighter left. And not only was the wish allowed, it was actually how he passed our Prince's secret test of character. This means that I would know that everything would be fine and dandy. Surely there's no reason to care about what happens with any of the universe erasures, knowing that they'll just be done, right? Well, the answer is, of course, this. When I was watching 118's dub version, I may as well have been line watching the episode, period, because I was feeling solemn enough that the only reason I didn't burst into tears was because I'm used to sad scenes, and the only other emotion I felt was laughter from, what else, Caulifla's antics toward her Namekian teammates Piranha and Sanel. Why is the scene of Universes 2 and 6 being erased powerful enough to not get cheapened by the Everybody Lives ending? Well, there's a saying that what matters is the journey, not the destination. That, by the way, is actually further reason why Caulifla going by her promise of beating up Piranha and Sanel just for humor is funny, even if it's a bit mean-spirited toward the two. Because Caulifla is about to be erased along with the rest of Universe 6, no questions asked when her team had just been fully routed. And here she is, showing that a little detail like that doesn't break her in the least. Not that we're not long past the point where the Genki girl surprising me by doing something completely unexpected would be an accomplishment, mind you, but some concepts just plain never get old. As to the rest of the scene, well, I can start with Champa's silly face toward Beerus. And you know, as of this point writing the script, it occurred to me that Champa for his only erasure would have been inspired by Caulifla, go figure. I don't even know how I didn't even guess that sooner, but the choreography certainly fits. Champa was certainly looking at his team, showing surprise about what was going on there before calling out into Beerus. I'm guessing what happened with this particular point not being that big a priority for me. Don't get me wrong, because it still works as a selling point when Champa has had its moments, and Beerus' response is to tell ambiguous intended recipient to say something in a rattled tone. Oh well, perhaps that's precisely why it's not priority for me, because everybody would catch that with Champa's own sense of importance. Nay, what I can focus on is Universe 2's goodbye show. Universe 2, as far as the plot goes, was basically just there to help provide for the Monster of the Week formula for the Tournament of Power that makes itself especially clear with Amira's episode. And yep, that's an irony right there, given that their mainstays are supposed to be magical girls akin to Sailor Moon. The goodbye show, meanwhile, was basically handled like how you'd likely expect a standard ending of an episode of whatever show Universe 2 manages would go. Basically a sense of business as usual. It was perhaps directed to the other teams, sure, but to the Universe 2 residents, they don't even go into hysteria at any point, even though as far as they're aware, they're about to have their existence ended by some childlike figure and left with no soul, no memories, nothing beyond being a few pages in the surviving universe's history records if they're lucky. I think that would be scarier than a favorite media franchise ending could ever be, despite the shockingly appropriate comparison there. But then again, if you look closely, Amira had joined in despite being a cold sniper, and so something had to be worth going through with it. as for Universe 6's side of things, well, I went over about how Caulifla and Shampa's facing the bullets, and Dr. Rhoda Magetta and both of them just looked over and Caulifla's chasing the Namekian duo, while I wanted to say Kale was trying to check Caulifla. Really, I covered about everything but Hit being stoic as ever, Kappa of course bidding Vegeta fortune and restoring Universe 6, and Vados being still playful towards Champa, then bowing when Universe 6's erasure is done. And Vados' bow is basically how I feel, similar to what had happened recently with Rome Mistral's mother. You see, I had pushed up the timetable on my Star Tropics self-imposed challenge over that. By the way, only checking Rome Mistral's LP poll after the practice realized that Star Tropics actually placed low. But yeah, basically these sorts of events want you to do one of those gun salutes or some such. That events like Universes 2 and 6's erasure would be undone only does so much to mitigate reasons to be lugubrious in light of the details. So when I talked about, you might notice we're not near at the end of this, because yes, I have something else to talk about, and it's why I'm not doing this rant video. I believe I had already complained at length about Funimation's hypocrisy making Jimmy's into chauvinist for the dub. I mentioned about a forum where a female moderator basically chased me off by pulling absolutely intemperate post-deletion. If you're wondering, the forum is Animesuperhero, formerly known as Toonzone, and the female moderator is Light Lucario. Yeah, I'm just going to blab that out, because what I was wanting to do was link posts about each full team elimination in the Tournament of Power, Comet's Dubberry. There's actually a pattern with the order of the eliminated teams, in that the worst teams fall out faster and the better teams last longer. And it ends up with a very welcome setup, with a surprising emphasis on the mind over the body, as well as points such as how survival of the fittest at all costs is a death sentence toward necessary development. And yes, the Tournament of Power does get to showing truth in combat as early as Hop's little glory grab attempt, causing chaos, distracting her universe's important armor guy into leaving himself open to anti-armor, a major factor in what dominoed Universe 9 into their early VP. The truth in combat concept shines nicely into some other details as well, such as Universe 10 being the only team that failed to get a single KO, while Universe 3 was so close to the same failure, but Anilaza managed to secure a KO. The only reason Android 17 wasn't the one to take it was because the Android 18 decided to be eliminated on her own terms. Oh, and 18's self-elimination is what brings up the sadness of the whole mess, because remember that Light Lucario had started this by deleting a post I made and calling out the Funimation stuff, arbitrarily making a morally up my character, Jim, into a chauvinist and a caricature. She did it because I talked about Big Nyanya at all. I was somehow flame baiting that way on a forum that about shows intended for more mature audience. Or did the mere concept of future All-King erasing the multiverse of future Trunks' timeline for keeps to do the same to Infinite Zama's escape her? I'm not even the one who brought up Jimmy's dub line, because I was more focused on handling pre-typed posts due to this being the same episode with Universe 10's elimination. And that's two more things. First off, a good 3,000 words, a whole third of my post about Universe 10's elimination when they're talking about Kuth. Yeah, not Zama's Lucifer analog. Despite its being respawned and thinking all mortals are like Universe 10's and being filled with sadists, idiots, and rejects, I talk about a thick character who just survives to be in a broken state. Incidentally, Kuth was acting like some game show hostess before. Yeah, you can guess where that was going. I would indicate that awesome females would be just that awesome. Why should they be suffocated by gender? It's just insulting that this would be ignored, especially after all this time. I could see my commentary about Kuth would to get ignored because I spoiler tagged a lot of the posts, but the other reason the intemperate post-deletion of my points against Jimmy's chauvinism is double standards is the reason why I did the spoiler tagging to begin with. It wasn't because of any deliberate spoilers, as I didn't post any giveaways, although I did foreshadow a few things, most notably the universe restoration wish, of course. It was because a follow-up post made a good point that my posts were long, and I thought the page spillover would at least mitigate that, but eating through 2/3 of the page at all was more than enough reason to add several spoiler tags to make the whole thing more digestible with sorting, and especially not eat through the page length without a viewer's approval. If there are politics that are irksome, then guess what? I could have just added a spoiler tag with a politics warning on the label. I've proven empathetic on the same damn topic, for God's sake. Light Lucario, deleting my post out of the blue is little more than showing that making the communication broken is deliberate on your part. The result is the same. I chewed out Light Lucario with a long pasted message, posting it on Toonzone's Discord, and then stormed off Toonzone, including the Discord. I've not looked back, so I don't know if I'm banned on Toonzone or not. All I do know is that the other users there don't really care either. If they did, they'd have proven as much by this point. And they're just subscribed to being just as gynocentric. Of course, the result of my leaving is that I'm not posting about the later eliminations, or even about Ultra Instinct, because I actually did have a Reddit length post about its story implications. It just pains me too, because while I'm not sure about my commentary on Universe 6 wouldn't get too weird or generic, I can at least say I would have managed interest with talking about Universe 2, citing Ultimate Question of the Avatar with why Ribrianne's planned Super Dragon Ball's wish was innately flawed, pointing out the blind spots of love, and indicating that the critical flaw of Universe 2's team composition was excess reliance on special defense gimmicks. Oh, and interestingly, looking at my rough draft for what I had planned, I was calling out Pell being another divine figure, a creator at that, with bias toward brawn over brains, and even alluded to Bridger about that mess being involved in a universe that would be more favoring of females. My post about Universe 3 would have been the real treat, pointing out that its placing in the Tournament of Power, where it's on the podium with the brawn, could not have been more perfect. The dualistic explanation to why it doesn't get second or first is obvious. The Universe 3 are in a shonen anime without protagonist status, and they still defy that somewhat by outlasting Universe 6. Granted that Universe 4 does that too, but they were more reliant on hanging away from trade pockets. And that brings up the Watsonian explanation, which is far more interesting. In that Universe 3 gets by on being crafty with shows of being crazy prepared, and even have their combat abilities not rely on the opponent being kept in the dark about what they are in a stark contrast to Universe 4. They were of course a squishy wizard team, but even then getting even one KO, even if it required a four-person fusion to do that or not, means that they managed an objective lead over Universes 9 and 10. At the same token, having that be their only accomplishment is an indication that being too mechanical is going to fall short. Being creative and more attuned to nature can still provide very useful coverage as a reminder that yes, there's different kinds of intelligence, and Universe 3's suffering stems from being too mechanical for better overall defense. Or not defense, or offense. There's even a piece of trivia that fits with that Universe 3 is the only team that doesn't have a single female, having only males or genderless robots. Granted, Android 18 is the last female taken out of the tournament, but that just punctuates the dignity in her elimination. That she walked into that particular arena with her head held high, and she did it for another person who wasn't even her husband or daughter. Oh, and that other person? Android 17. I wouldn't even have to point out about the Universe Restoration wish at all, when 17's continued status of being in play pays off immediately, with his follow-up actions being pivotal to Anila's breakdown. 18 has her share of confidence that could easily have fed her pride as a tough woman, but she went with an admirable action that ended up leaving us with Universe 7's perhaps most astute fighter of being a significant contributor to the rest of their successes, including softening up Jiren. Android 18 may not be my type, of course, but her display in faith is something I'll salute her for. Where I'm going with this is Oh hey, I think females proving themselves awesome would be a very welcome thing. It's teeth-gnashing that the likes of Light Lucario, who's supposed to be a women's rights advocate, would, rather than accept me as an ally, even if I would have to play devil's advocate at times, decide that refusing to face uncomfortable truths about that cause, brought up by the existence of the extremists, is worth the leading commentary chewing out chauvinism by a hypocritical group that screams guilty. I wouldn't expect that ironing out issues with the drawbacks of one's own cause would at least showcase its. I would expect that ironing out issues with the drawbacks of one's own cause would at least showcase its validity better. I'm not even claiming that the line of logic that two wrongs don't make it right, and I don't want to. I'm just making it clear that it does have a point. But of course, Light Lucario doesn't care, and will even claim that YouTube videos with recorded URLs aren't evidence, when that line of logic is one that has had anything to create some fucked up game, because that always goes so well. What really warrants this getting a rant video, of course, is that is just the tip of the iceberg of what I really want to call out. Because I'm at a point where I am just plain angry at rights advocates in the opposite sex, both in general. And believe me, it's for easily more reasons than some moderator on the message board. Both groups have refused to care about valid communication, they have attempted to silence me to cover up their bullshit, and they have refused to play fair in the first place. I'm keeping details on the down low, sure, but it doesn't change that Light Lucario's behavior is a shockingly resembling example of the mess. It gets more annoying when a recent accident on my part, set off by a rush due to an outside party's incompetence, ended up showing yet another reminder of why I'd want a wife. But these people don't want to understand. No, of course not. They just want to have everything steeped in gender politics and paranoia for its own sake. And I, for one, have suffered horribly for it. And you know, while I maybe firmly I stand with Vic at this point, let me clarify a few things. I still think that the Cross-Assault incident is an incredible farce that shows how the fighting game community don't care one whit about this novel concept called compassion. I still think that we shouldn't have somebody who subscribes to treating foreign-born soldiers like dirt at the president. I still hate the terms assault and SJW, which the I Stand With Vic members unfortunately use too frequently, because those terms degrade people arbitrarily, and I certainly still would rather believe in awesome females. That last one is what makes people who are like Monica Rial so frustrating. Their garbage is just plain indefensible, and it's been that way from the start. Unfortunately, people like that have always been out there, and when you know it, it makes it so much harder to find anybody genuine. In fact, even being genuine becomes harder in a society where trust gets suffocated by these betrayers making anything look like a scam. Even if Vic Mignogna is guilty, which is increasingly proving less likely by the day, it doesn't change that the likes of his opponents are still vile snakes that are the contributors to the problems with society as a whole. And karma can't hit them soon enough. It sucks that we need that to happen, but it's been like that for a long time. At this point, here's the Vic Mignogna proving to be innocent, just to feed these hypocrites some much needed humility.